finally on the show today, we have a Mechanically Speaking.
Why are we mechanically speaking?
I'm going to tell you why we're mechanically speaking, mostly because I happen to play a game that brought up an old problem, or mechanic, I guess you could say, in gaming that I wanted to dig into. So I was playing a game, and it's called Windbound. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Yes, it was free on Epic, and I own it.
Yep, and that's the reason I own it as well. And I had heard about it. I thought that I would actually pick it up and, actually try to play it. Besides the fact that it had some good stuff, some not so great stuff, one of the most notable things is that it has pretty restrictive storage capacity, carrying capacity.
It's a survival game. Yes.
It is a survival game. It's supposed to be set on like these island chapters, so there's a lot of sailing involved in it with your ship. But one of the big things is that there's survival crafting and hunger meters and all of that. So in that you have a limited amount of storage capacity, and then you're supposed to build bags that you can use to increase that amount, or create pots that can go onto your ship that you can use to put in crafting supplies and the like.
Okay, so it's like Raft.
It's like Raft, or pretty much most games where you have an inventory space and then you can get a bunch of barrels or chests or something and you can put it in there. It became, though, a problem for me because I realized I was spending more time with inventory management than playing the game. That became an issue.
Backpack Simulator.
It's Backpack Simulator, exactly. When can I get the better backpack upgrade so I have another 10 slots for my capacity? One of the things that I noticed that was really very annoying was the stacking capacities. You would think that, well, if I could just have a stack of rocks, I could just, have as many of the little pebbles that I want in that stack, but after 20, it goes over to, another piece. And then when
I don't like that.
No, well, you're gonna hate it even more, because if you have, animal horns, you slay one of the big beasts that's around, and you want the horns because you can make, stuff with them, those carrying capacities, you can only hold 2 in a slot, and then it will go over to another one.
So I think it's encouraging you to use them.
It would love to, yeah. The problem is that a lot of them, they'll give you those resources, but then there's other resources that don't unlock until later chapters so that you can make the thing that you want. So you kind of got to hold on to them.
Or can you go back?
No, not really. It's in several chapters, so there are new islands and resources that you get when you get to the next act.
Okay.
It starts to unlock stuff. So that I think is a bigger mechanical problem with that game specifically. But what it got me to thinking about is the actual mechanics of either, your weight limits, your carrying capacities, and the like, and how you figure that out effectively. Because the only real reason that you have that mechanic is that you don't want players picking up just every single thing in the damn game.
Players are going to pick up everything in the game.
Exactly. And so the reason why you have any kind of a weight limit or capacity at all is to avoid them picking up 500 great hammers and just calling it good. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you actually factor that out? I said that you just mentioned that, okay, I get the 2 of the horns and I can't hold more in that slot. It probably is encouraging me to use those rather than hold on to those supplies. If they put a limit capacity of 5 on them, I might not feel that way. I actually usually just said, well, I guess I can't hold any more, and if I got them, I just chuck them down and hopefully come back for it later. But if I have, let's say, actually, I got a great example of this, of how they probably figured this out. Do you remember a game called The Fallout New Vegas?
The Fallout New Vegas? No, but Fallout New Vegas, yes.
The Fallouts of the New Vegas eye. There was a very well known. The first DLC that it made was Dead Money, where you went off to the Sierra Madre. There is a part where you go into the vault of the Sierra Madre at the end of that DLC, and there are 140, I want to say, gold bars that you can pick up, and they weigh like 35 pounds each. You can't pick all of them up without getting completely over encumbered and not being able to move. They do that on purpose. because they want you to... That specifically because they want you to have to walk away from not being able to carry all the gold bars out of the out of the Sierra Madre. So how do you figure this out? Like, what a player can keep, how we expand their ability to hold more, and why things should weigh what they weigh.
Well, I think what a lot of games do is crafting materials generally will have their own, like, slot.
Mm-hmm.
Either they'll have larger stacks you can hold because they know people are going to just collect them, or in other games, sometimes they'll be weightless.
Mm-hmm.
Is, I think, a good way to do it, because if you're encouraging people to engage with a system that requires you to collect a lot of materials, you should find a way that they can hold a lot of materials, or a way they can go back and get those materials. In this case, if you cannot go back to require items that you need later, there needs to be a way to hold on to those without losing them.
Sure.
Unless your intent is making sure they pick and choose what they, you're taking.
Right.
Where I guess if it's a survival game, you should be more conscious about what you're taking. But if they're things that everyone's going to want, like really good upgrades to armor or weapons or your boat or whatever that you really need, it's like, well, this is not a non-choice. It is just taking up space then.
Right. Yeah.
So it's either you accommodate for that, or you accommodate for the fact that people are going to hoard items.
Yeah. They didn't necessarily make it particularly easy to understand when it came to Windbound, at least. It wasn't necessarily that resources became unavailable as they went through the acts, but that there were certain resources that you did require that you did not have available when you were in the earlier ones. But the fact of the matter is that then when you would get to the new islands, etc., you would find that some of those resources might be available, but they're not as readily available. Like, they're not as prevalent, and new ones are. So trying to figure out what I needed going in that would make it easier or faster to craft something, that's a little hard. In a general survival game, just the general survival games that you have, where it's just one big landscape, I have always found myself trying to figure out, one of the first things that I have to figure out as a priority is where I can store stuff.
Right.
And how many of these storage containers can I make for that very reason. It seems to be one of the biggest problems. Creating a backpack so that I can expand my storage capacity or my weight capacity seems to be a priority. I worry, though, that when you have games that focus too heavily on, like, you need so many resources and they take up so much space, so you can't hold a ton, what they're really setting up is either a massive inventory management simulation, or the problem where your main priority is not the survival anymore. It's just trying to get a storage lot that you can go back to on a regular basis.
Right. That goes back to, like, the Skyrim and Fallout 4 thing, which we've talked about before, which is, I've just put mods in that make crafting materials weightless.
Yeah.
And junk weightless, because I'm going to pick up everything, and I'm not going to engage with that. It's like, this is how it makes it more fun for me, is by not having to go, oops, I'm carrying too many junk items, now I need to revisit Corvega 16 times.
Yeah. In fact, I would say one of the hardest things to deal with when it came to New Vegas when you had hardcore mode was the fact that all of a sudden ammunition had weight.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, oh no, a missile's like 3 pounds or something.
Yeah.
If you're
Which,
holding on to it.
if you're someone who enjoys playing games that will take the realism realistically,
yeah,
that's fine.
Sure.
But I don't feel most people play the games for that.
No. It's one of the reasons why I really liked what they did with Wasteland 3, because in Wasteland 3, you just carry everything.
Yeah.
There's no carrying capacity or anything. There's no magical vault you go back to store. You don't need it. It's just all in your.
Well, it goes back to the other day when we were playing D&D.
Mm-hmm.
I think you had asked about weight.
Yep.
And this is tabletop as well. Is, how many games have you played, Nathan, where carrying capacity was taken into account?
In tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
Not really very many. I think it's occasionally postulated about, but it's one of those things that they don't talk about too heavily.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's in the rule book. It's like, this is how to calculate your carrying capacity, or how much you can lift, or how much you can push, pull, whatever like that.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all things that are calculated out that you can figure out. But most people I know and have played with don't really deal with it.
Right. I think one of the problems that you have in tabletop gaming is that with a lot of like the custom experiences that you have creating those stories, you might come across, I'll just give you an example from one of my games when I was Dr. McFly. You might just come across 50 mechanical scorpion parts.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we figure out the weight? I think what we did was, one, just figure out how many parts were around that I might want. But also, I think the weight limit-ish issue there was to mostly restrict so that I didn't try to figure out if I could carry, like, 1,000 parts around just because.
And that's the thing. Where in D&D it's like, all right, well, I was telling you, don't worry too much about weight, but unless it's like excessive.
Sure.
Because I figure characters generally don't carry more than they can.
Yeah.
Adventurers, specifically, if they're going out to do things, it's like, you can carry a fair amount, but like, if you want to be like, hey, I'm carrying like 3 doors with me, it's going to be like, no.
How many Warhammers should I bring with me? Maybe I should bring like a casual one and maybe one for special occasions.
Well, you got to figure with like weapons, for instance. It's generally you'll have, if you have like 2 or 3 weapons, like 2 melee and a sword, a shield, another hammer, and then a bow. It's like the bow is gonna be 2 of those weapons are gonna be strapped to you, and one's gonna be in your hand at like all times.
Right. I actually do think more often about like not the weight capacity or the slot capacity, but how physically you would actually carry stuff. Yeah. I don't know if you ever think about that. It's like, okay, so wait a second. I have 2 musical instruments, and I also have like a sword and a knife, and what else do I have? Like a boomerang? Do I have a bow? Do I have a hammer? Where am I keeping this stuff? Like 2 on the back and 1 on the front. Do I have them on a belt? I feel like that would be an interesting system to try and build, like where you have certain spots to put things, like on a belt or on your back or something. I don't typically see them, and probably for the reason that it seems like way too much micromanagement.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. That's very, very, very structured. But the reason why I kind of brought this up to begin with is because there's always going to be a mechanical reason why you build those sort of restrictions on what players can carry, and I need to kind of like get an idea of basically what that restriction is supposed to be. Do you want me to pick up a lot of things because you want me to be crafting a lot, or you want me to be exploring and scavenging a lot? Or do you want me to be really calculatingly thinking about the specific items that I want? It's going to change what my stacks are, what the weight of certain items are. If you make every single, like, ball bearing in my pack weigh a pound, I'm probably not going to use many ball bearings, or not the way that they're intended.
Yeah. I think the games should probably let you know what they're trying to encourage up front. In the case of Windbound, it doesn't seem like they've told you what their reasoning is, but it seems more like it wants you to scavenge as you go rather than hold on to items.
Yeah. I think it just kind of confuses the issue by very quickly showing you a bunch of recipes for things that you actually can't make until later acts. Like,
well, that's just like, here's just a bunch of recipes, but you can't make them, so hold on to these ingredients for later. It's like, why?
It was probably the most frustrating thing about it. It's like, hey, here's a way that you could make an axe so you can chop down trees. Oh, okay, so what do I need for that? And they'd explain it. It's like, oh, cool, I've got this ingredient, and I got that ingredient, and what's the other thing I need? Oh, that's a monster that doesn't show up for 2 more acts. So should I just keep these around, or, like, should I just keep them on my pack?
That's a little weird. It's like, oh yeah, you can do this, but you can't do it till later. So why are they showing it to you now?
Yeah, why are you telling? Yeah, why can't I chop down these trees that you're showing me right now, when I can't build the axe to chop them down yet?
That seems like an oversight.
That is a very big oversight. I think it might have just been too that I was in the adventure mode, and there is apparently like an endless mode, or like a big freeform mode, and maybe this is all just out of the gate available. But still, if you're in the adventure mode and this is the structure, maybe don't introduce those things until I can actually make them.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the other thing that worried me about the way that they developed that particular system is those slots that you have are not just for your crafting items, they're also if you pick up food items, so your berries and your meat and anything like that, and any of your tools, weapons, or armor, masks, anything like that, those all go into those slots as well. So you get bogged down very quickly with things that are essentially like permanent items.
So they don't go into a like equipment slot, they just get equipped from your like
specific ones have equipment slots that are just equipment slots. But like your hammer and your axe and stuff like that, those don't.
There was some game I was playing, I don't remember what it was now, but you equipped items and they stayed in your inventory, and I was like, I hate this.
Oh, yeah, you can't get rid of them. They're like essential items at that point.
No, it's just like you have your backpack and you have your equipment, but you equip the item and it stays in your backpack, taking up inventory slots. And I was like, no.
Yeah, that's annoying. You've basically been cursed with the curse of 1 less inventory slot.
Yeah, like 6 less inventory slots.
Yeah. Good job. But yeah, I hate the curse of the 1 less inventory slot, and I curse it for it. I don't mind if they give you a pretty laborious amount of storage space up at the front. I think it's better to have your weight capacities be something that you don't immediately see or experience. If I have to start thinking about what I am carrying before I have even built my boat in Windbound, we have a problem.
Yeah.
If I have to start thinking about my carrying capacity during my starting loadout with my starting equipment, I don't think this was built very well.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully going forward it gets updated, fixed.
Yeah, hopefully it does. But I kind of stopped playing it now, so
fair enough.
It's fine.
Fair enough.
most mostly so trying to just kind of come up with more of a golden ratio. I don't have one, but I would imagine that if you kind of factor in what you are starting your players off with, what you're starting your characters off with, and then maybe double that, maybe triple that as your overall capacity, and then just try to figure it out from there. But the basic idea with the goal being, no, you probably don't want your players just holding on to every single thing. I don't want them picking up the entire world in their paws. But at the same time, if you're not going to let them hold anything, why bother at all? You might as well not have items.
Yeah. Again, this is why in D&D I will basically say, yeah, you can pretty much carry whatever, just like not to an egregious amount, like use like not necessarily common sense, but use an idea of what you could realistically carry.
I can carry 140 gold bars out of the Sierra Madre if I really believe.
It depends on the size of those gold bars.
Yeah, they're not very big, but they do weigh you down quite a bit.
Well, yeah, gold is incredibly dense.
It is very,
so
very
like
dense.
if they're big bars of gold, and again you said they weigh 34 pounds each in that,
35, yeah.
That's a big bar of gold.
Yeah, exactly.
34 pounds of gold is probably worth a couple $1,000.
Yeah, I think it was
probably
worth...
tens of thousands of dollars.
It was worth a lot of caps.
Yeah.
Which is why you wanted to take them.
Hold, please.
Okay. We're gonna look up some... We're gonna do some financing right now. We're gonna get you learned.
Gold troy pound value per day. As of June 26, 2021, a gold troy pound is worth 21,000.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, 1 ounce of gold is $1,700.
Nice. I don't quite remember what the cap cost of them was in New Vegas when you brought them back, but I'm starting to realize I think that the conversion rate makes caps far more valuable than dollars. Because I think it was only like 1,400 or something caps.
So 34 pounds is 544 ounces. So, yeah. Anyways, aside from that, gold is not measured in typical things. It's the troy pound, troy ounce, so it's a little slightly off, but generally speaking, an ounce of gold is worth over 1,000, so 34 pounds of gold is worth a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. I might be able to get some power armor. Now I just have to figure out how I can carry it.
Yeah. Well, you transmute it into something lighter. For the duration that you're carrying it, and then it reverts back.
Oh, good. Yeah,
transmutation magic isn't permanent.
Oh, good. I just need to make sure that I have the correct spells, and suddenly carrying weight is a thing of the past.
Yeah, you transmute the gold into silver, and silver is much less dense than gold.
Oh, sure.
So it weighs a lot less.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Titanium.
No, that's probably pretty dense.
Yeah, it is. Platinum? I want to say platinum's actually pretty light.
Go with like silver.
Go with silver. Okay.
Go with silver.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So, yeah, carrying capacities. No, you don't want to carry the world, but you have to kind of factor in what really needs to be heavy.
Atlas's carrying capacity was. He carried the whole world on his shoulders.
Yeah, but remember, he was in space. So
he was also naked.
He was also naked. Yeah, exactly. Atlas would be a great case study in carrying capacity because
we could always go with Pratchett.
Yeah.
And then the elephants carry the world instead.
Yeah. Or a turtle. You could have a turtle. It's all good.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Am I thinking Pratchett? Is that Discworld?
Discworld, yeah.
Okay.
Was it the
Okay.
elephants or was it the turtle? I thought.
I don't know. Maybe both. Who knows? Anyone who knows what we're talking about, let us know in Discord.
One of them's from one thing, one of them's from another.